Good afternoon. The video I recorded was done on Friday with Mr. Jim Reagan, who is my co-instructor from a different organization in helping me teach my emergency medical technician course for high school seniors through the Technical College High School Brandywine, part of the Chester County Intermediate Unit in Downingtown, Pennsylvania. While I did attempt to try and obtain other teachers to participate in this exercise, I was unable to get anyone who was willing to be interviewed, possibly due to the fact of either time constraints or, as has been the case lately with the COVID-19, they are busy doing other things at their own homes, with their own children, and just nobody responded. I was able to get Jim to assist me with this in answering the questions for the presentation, due in part to the fact that he has been teaching with me. He taught my class when I was out on a medical sabbatical for 2 months and has been an educator, as you can see in the video, for quite some time. What I found to be interesting in his responses are that he views assessments, as do most educators in the EMS field. Please keep in mind that the majority of educators in the EMS field that teach either at the community college that I teach at as adjunct faculty, or the other program that's being run in the county of Chester through a different high school, are not formally educated teachers, but very well-trained EMS providers that have attended a 40-hour instructor methodology course and learned the basics of education prior to teaching. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania has no other requirements for someone to be an educator, except for the fact that they must teach at their level of training or lower. Therefore, I find myself being in a very small cohort of formal educators that teach the EMS curriculum. I am one of the 11 instructor trainers for the Commonwealth. So, to answer these questions in response to how Jim answered them, I found his knowledge of education to be fairly deep when it came to the subject material of both EMS, fire, being that he's also a state fire instructor. But with regards to the formal round of assessment, the concepts as described in either or in any of the text aren't really there. This is no fault of his own. I just know for a fact that when you're teaching a 40-hour instructor methodology course, you're limited on the amount of time. This field has a tendency to use a lot of boxed, or as we call them, canned presentation materials. All 40 chapters are available from the book publishers in the form of PowerPoints, as well as the assessments used, whether they're formative or summative assessments, are also created using test banks. They're always multiple choice and are graded automatically for the instructor. The only part that the training institute that I was involved with looks for is a passing grade based on the mechanics of the company that does the exam, being able to tell you that in this case, FISDAP, which is the company that is used, will tell you that anyone who receives a 71% or higher on their 200 question, 3-hour final exam has a 95% or higher approval rate or pass rate on the National Registry for Emergency Medical Technicians certification exam. So they're going after not allowing anyone to take the certification exam unless they get a 71% or higher, because they want to be able to publish commercially, their first time pass rate being extremely high. While I understand that from being a executive director of an ambulance company for 28 years, you're marketing a product, unfortunately, not a lot of oversight goes into the educational background of the people teaching. They just need to have that certification card and that instructor methodology certification. As I reviewed the material for this week and plus my previous classes that I've taken in assessments, whether it's through Popham's writings or Spalding's writings, I find that there needs to be a lot more put into putting a class together other than just getting in the front of the classroom and reading a PowerPoint. Now, that being said, while I do use PowerPoints myself, I have a tendency to chop them apart or use just the first 3 slides, which is an overview of the National Education Standards for the Emergency Medical Technician as published by the Federal Highway EMS.gov. I'm drawing a blank right at the moment. But anyway, I find it more to have a conversation with students, to flip the classroom, have them review different material, and then present it back out to their own class. And then I like to use a lot of games in my assessments. We use Jeopardy rather frequently, and break the groups or break the students into teams. And even in the college classes that I teach, I use the same format because everybody enjoys a game, and competition sometimes is a little healthy. Now, that being said, in the high school environment, I do have to deal with, as you're aware, IEPs and 504s, and therefore I have to make accommodations. And in the college environment, while we're not mandated to follow those same IEPs, I have found that the paramedic program I teach, they do try, if the student is able to present the IEP from when they were in high school, we do try and honor them to some degree. Lastly, what I have to say about this is that we are also one of the medical fields that require not just a cognitive certification, but also a psychomotor exam that needs to be passed. Therefore, in the assessment sides, the National Registry of Emergency Medical Technician is the governing body for our psychomotor exams that the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania follows. The National Registry publishes on their website all the practical skill station exam scenarios, well, not scenarios, but the rubrics that need to be followed and met to pass a station. As an example, there are 42 possible points both in the medical assessment and trauma assessment. There are also critical fails that if a student was to conduct one of those critical fails, they would automatically fail. Usually you need, or typically you have to have at least a 70% pass rate on points if you do not hit a critical fail to pass a station. The candidate taking the exam, because it is the summative exam, is not provided any feedback whatsoever. Therefore, in the program, we run these mock exams after weeks, months, in my case, of practicing these individual skills and other skills that are not tested that are required to be able to function as an emergency medical technician. These are done on a formative basis the student will follow a method of watch one, do one, teach one. That way we're kind of hitting on all the domains of learning. I have found that learning how to write assessments really goes back to how well you're writing the syllabus for the course. You're doing how well you're able to write your, not just your syllabus, but also the daily schedule and creating the components that go into the course. We have a tendency to use the same exams over, looking at the abysmal score of questions to see if they were too hard or too easy, as well as what is the pass rate on a specific question. And based on those analytics, we are able to determine if it's a good question, a bad question. We will randomly put in test questions that are not going to show up on an exam, but are more used to test the question. The other thing that we'll do is we'll hold monthly, at the Good Fellowship Training Institute that I work with, monthly sessions on passing around test questions and having other instructors take a look at them. Kind of a peer review process, if you will, of test generation and question writing. I do apologize, and I'm sure it's going to cost me points. I attempted to get other instructors to be interviewed, but I just not was able to. So far, the first week has been an interesting week. And having been off for this period of time from the closure of my primary school, CUP, and then moving into CUW, it's just trying to get back on that bike again and moving closer. Now that I have about a year and a half of my doctorate done, I'm still a little lost, I'll admit that. I still don't have an advisor appointed to me that I'm aware of, that I've received an email on, that would be my doctoral advisor. My previous one was Dr. Marvel. She was awesome. So I'm kind of in a little bit of a limbo, but that's okay. I will adapt, overcome, and improvise and get through it. I hope you've had a great weekend. Sorry to get this uploaded at the last minute. As you can tell by the noise in the background, I'm actually on duty pulling a 24-hour shift here at the fire department. And I look forward to doing these again, but also finding some participants. It's a strange time that we're in with the COVID-19. All our education has gone to strictly online, as I'm sure you're aware. We have staff meetings every Thursday at 1400 hours. And that's the only time I get to really see other instructors. As a side note, not an excuse, just a side note, an explanation, my program is the only one of its kind in the high school, taught by me off campus from the main high school. I really have no interaction with the main high school except once a week to go over and pick up my mail. Typically when they have their staff meetings, I'm still teaching class in the afternoon. So as it was once described to me by another teacher that was my mentor when I first got hired 3 years ago, I'm a lonely man on a lonely island doing what I love to do. And she called it right. I do enjoy education. So thank you. And I look forward to interacting with you and the rest of the class soon. Have a great day.